is Thomas, and I'm the owner of Handling Company. So, what Handling does, it deals with website designer, front end and back end design, and also we deal with cloud computing. So, today I'll just be telling you a little bit about Handling and what it does. So, a little bit about myself. So today I'll be talking about who I am, my education background, how I began programming, and why programming. So to begin with, I'll start by saying I already introduced myself. I already said I'm Thomas. I'm from Kenya, the country, and I specifically live in Nairobi. So what I like to do is I like to go out, I like to have fun, and mostly I like to do software development. That's what my area of interest. So my educational background, I began school in Kenya. There is a system known as 442. 448 484, I think so, yeah, whereby you begin 844, I mean you begin 8 years in primary school, and then 8 years in secondary school or high school, and then 4 years, 8 years in primary school, 4 years in secondary school or high school, and then 4 years in college. So in my primary school had I went to I think Upendo is where I went to school, and in high school I went to Chavakali Boys High School, and in college I went to Jomo Kenyatta Jomo Kenyatta College, whereby I just did pursue a degree in statistics. So yeah. So how I began programming as a self-taught. It began as a passion right from when I was in high school. I used to do competitions. I used to do things to do with programming most of the time. So I began learning things to do with tech. While I was in high school, I began using my computer tech lab. In our high school, there was something known as a computer. So we used to go to the tech house. We used to call it a tech house, whereby we used to do our computers there, computer lessons. So I began teaching myself their lessons. So I began looking at how websites are built. So my interest began, like wanted to know how are those websites built. So that's how I began my programming, and right from there I got a scholarship to do after completing high school. I got a scholarship to do programming, which at the time my parents did not have enough funds, so I could not go for that scholarship. But I did not give up with my dream for programming, so I continued with it. So in campus is when I began seriously about programming. So in my second year I had already gotten my first client in programming, and that was still I was doing self-taught. So I began mostly as a freelancer, and now I'm a professional programmer. So why programming? Okay, so it began by an interest. So this interest began while I was in high school. Actually, while I was in primary, I used to see people going to computer labs and doing some stuff about computer, and I really wanted also me myself to know about it. So, but at that time, our family did not have enough fund to buy me a computer, so I could not really pursue. It was just an interest at the time. So while I was in high school, that's when I was able to have some classes, computer classes. I was able to be told I can choose a computer class, or I can do physics, or I can do math, or I can do those other kind of subjects. So I decided to choose computer, and also physics and math and geography the side. So that's when I began interacting with computers. I remember I used to type with my index finger. That's how I used to type. But right now, I started learning the quality of typing and stuff. So I began by doing some typing in Microsoft Word. Then later, I began developing interest in Notepad. I wanted to see if I can be able to replicate what is replicated in the computer. So that's how I began my interest in programming. So when I went to campus, I remember life was a little bit tough. So I began thinking, like, I already know some knowledge about programming. How can I utilize it to make money? So while I was getting in campus, I was looking for a degree to pursue. And at that time, I had not yet qualified. I wanted to do something to do with the computer science and stuff, and I did not qualify for that. So I went for with statistics because I knew somebody who does statistics could later do a master in computer science as a master. So I knew this is my best bet. So I chose statistics, and that was the right changing moment for me, because with that statistics I was able to learn data science also, which I later came to understand that incorporates with programming. So I never knew, most of the time when you write a code is just a mathematical expression of whatever computer reads, because whatever computer reads is known as a pulse. Yeah. So that's when I began knowing that. I began knowing that this a lot of these programming languages they're built, the underlying knowledge about them is computer. So if you look at the assembly language, most of it is just mathematical expression. So that's how. So I began, as I was doing my degree in campus. So I really got into deep knowledge about statistics, and I understood statistics. I understood the things to do with probability, and I pursued still my passion to do with programming. So that with that I used to link up with people who were doing programming. I began teaching people in my campus about programming, and then now after that, now that's when I started getting some feelings, and I started getting my first clients, and I was like, okay, this thing pays. So yeah, so that's how I used to learn programming. So later I increased. I saw that knowing programming alone won't be really advantageous, because things are really growing. So I began to segregate, like I will say, like disperse some elements of programming. That's why so I began learning also things known as cloud architecture. I began learning things known as microservices. I began learning DevOps. I began learning. I began learning how to handle infrastructure. Yeah. So that's when I began developing into a more career-based person, and that's how I got my first job and now my second job. So that's a little bit about myself. So thanks. You can be able to subscribe to my channel. For the next lecture will now be about the elements of programming, and also we'll know different categories. Like we shall know why do people call themselves a programmer, and why do others call themselves a DevOps engineer, and why do others call themselves like cloud infrastructure analyst. So we will be able to know those different categories, and we will be able to know what necessitate for those categories to come in handy. So please subscribe. My social links and my YouTube links will be on the description below, so you can please subscribe, and let's meet in the next lecture. Thank you.